The Habitat Brief set out a threefold challenge: the employment crisis, the housing crisis, and the ecological crisis, and asked us to design a disruptive innovation in housing at the scale of a neighbourhood that addresses these issues. These problems cannot be met by architecture alone. Therefore, we needed to speculate on alternative forms of life. Due to multiple economic and social factors, recently there have been increasing demands by leading economists for a universal basic income. Universal Basic Income, or UBI, is an unconditional income for every citizen. It is a periodic cash payment delivered to all on an individual basis without any means testing or work requirement. How could this universal basic income change the city? In a world where work is a choice, how can our ways of organising time and space, the public and the private, and the family unit be transformed? As a design think tank, we have explored how this newfound temporal sovereignty will open up new ways of living. In trying to address such a large question, we were struggling to find a place to start. Like everyone, we spent a lot of time on Zoom this year, and a lot of it from bed. So we decided that maybe that was the best place to begin. We proposed to imagine this new city from the bed outwards. Our beds are the first and last thresholds between us and the city. This soft surface also has an intimate rivalry with the workplace, and, as a result, its evolution mirrors that of modern life. The bed, then, serves as a key point from which to redesign the city after the disappearance of the workplace.
By examining the history of the bed and the bedroom, it becomes clear that we have not always slept the same, and that our relation to our beds, both individually and communally, has a high degree of plasticity. The bed is constantly redesigned to absorb the ways that the shifting landscape of work organises our time. From the beginnings of sedentary agriculture and the first fixed beds, as in the Neolithic settlements of Skara Brae, through the communal bedrooms of the medieval castle and monasteries composed of individual cells, the increasing separation of work and sleep in the Tudor and Georgian house, and finally, the reintegration of paid work into the home, driven by the invention of the personal computer and the internet. Now, in the wake of the pandemic, many of us have made this our default. Inside the homework environment, this compression continues, from the clear separation of the bed and the desk to the absolute minimal separation of the bed as soft desk, exemplified by Hugh Hefner, and finally, at the death of the bed as the last obstacle to productivity for techno-monk Steve Jobs. The relationship between work and the bed is, however, becoming even more intimate, crossing the threshold of sleep. Over the course of the 20th century, work steadily eroded the time of sleep. The average adult now sleeps for approximately 6.5 hours, down from 10 hours at the start of the 20th century. Where sleep could once be seen as a pleasurable end in itself, it is more commonly seen today as a tool for productivity. It is more common to talk of recuperation than rest. As Beatrice Colomina has said, sleep has become work, hard work. It's an obligation.
Our sleep-wake pattern is a central feature of human biology, an adaptation to life on a spinning planet with its endless cycle of night and day. But also, as Jonathan Crary has written, sleep poses the idea of a human need and interval of time that cannot be colonized and harnessed to a massive engine of profitability. The stunning, inconceivable reality is that nothing of value can be extracted from it. Indeed, this blankness is crucial to appreciate the full potential of sleep, or, as Roland Barthes puts it, the utopia of sleep is dreamless. With the introduction of a universal basic income, the restrained boundaries of the bed and sleep itself are loosened, and their possibilities are multiplied. In a dramatic role reversal, the bed, once a shock absorber for modern life, can become a catapult into an open city and beyond. The traditional bed is hopelessly inflexible, designed only as a singular object. To redesign the bed is to transform utopia. With a small modification to its dimensions, it is infinitely more divisible, interchangeable, and improvisational. The bed becomes a variable point of departure for waking life, rather than a fixed point which subsumes an increasing amount of it. By creating a standard space within which occupants can compose and arrange these heterogeneous sleeping conditions, we arrive at the sleeping cell or bed room. Twinned with its chiral counterpart, a private open space, we can then set out the basic minimum unit of our scheme. Our site, Fish Island in Hackney Wick, is currently a place in flux, an old industrial area undergoing large-scale private development. It presents a paradigmatic condition in which to explore these ideas and present a radically different vision of how the city might evolve.
What kind of neighborhood will we wake up to after leaving the utopia of sleep? What awaits us beyond the bed, and how is life outside these basic units composed on our site? There have been many different experiments on collective housing throughout history, from the Buddhist Vihara and the Benedictine monastery to the phalanstery of Fourier and the Soviet Dom Kommuna. Yet all of these models are tied to specific activities and a discrete temporal rigidity. There is only one architectural typology founded upon complete temporal freedom: the villa. The villa is a product of excess and aestheticism. Throughout history, the villa has been produced by the expropriation of land and often required a laboring class of indentured servants or slaves to produce its rarefied psychological atmosphere. It has therefore been ignored by those with a progressive agenda. However, universal basic income is based on the understanding that the whole of humanity has the right and the ability to share in the excesses that it has collectively produced, and to use this excess to secede from the necessity for working for anyone else, an equality of free time. UBI thereby inaugurates the possibility of a villa for 99% without exploitation, without theft, and without forced labor. The automatic villa. Within this new collective of individuals, associations are not made by economic necessity. Families strengthen, grow, split, or dissolve into new associations. Living units expand, contract, and combine along a series of enfilades to accommodate various types of interpersonal relationships which cross over a series of thresholds.
At its most compressed, living units are minimized, and communal functions are placed at the end of each block. At its most expansive, more traditional private flats can be combined and knocked through, supplemented with large communal spaces. This expansion is also reflected in section, with the highest density being arranged vertically and lower densities expanding horizontally to encapsulate a greater communal area. Sleep, now malleable and freed from the clock, is distributed in section. Closest to the ground live more polyphasic sleepers, waking and napping at all hours with easy access to the rest of the villa, and more monophasic sleepers living on the highest floors, protected from disturbances. The typology of the villa has always had a very deliberate relationship to nature. Classically buttressed by the opposition between nature and culture, villas wrap up the landscape in their own fantasy, cutting themselves off from their surroundings, physically with ornamental lakes and clipped hedges, or psychologically with sanitized pastoral vistas. Instead of this cut-out landscape, the landscape of the automatic villa is designed like a basket, which draws in and collects nature and culture and combines them together into a mixed, multi-species environment where even decay is seen as an active design principle. Concrete slabs are retained in strips from the old scrapyard. In between, wild plants grow and water flows down to the canal side. Mounds of earth rise up around the site, designed to remediate the soil of its toxic industrial residue and acting as buffers and collectors of social activity. In the centre is a square patch of forest, surrounded by an earth mound, a Cartesian wilderness which anchors the whole site and provides a haven for non-human animals.
Spread around this landscape are the remaining industrial buildings of the old scrapyard, which adjoin the living units. These are reimagined as the shared rooms of the automatic villa. The temporal freedom that is the basis of the villa means that its emphasis is more meteorological and programmatic. Rather than demolishing the existing buildings or neutralizing them with traditional architectural renovations for a given program, the design is focused on intensifying and editing the qualities each building already possesses, and in so doing, leaves the residents of the villa to develop and negotiate their own program. These open rooms, populating the site, create intensified gradients and thresholds, managing noise, temperature, humidity, weather, light levels, and privacy. Throughout the day and into the night, due to their programmatic diversity, different groups mix, argue, and form new social collectives. Here, friction and contrast are the inevitable consequence of freedom. We hope that our proposal, the automatic villa, will become a transitional idea like the horseless carriage, which marks the beginning of an evolution of the London housing estate into a new model for living and sleeping in the city.